we are here today with Stoddard County Prosecuting Attorney Sawyer Smith. We're going to look back at his first year in office and look ahead a little bit at the rest of his first term.
Well, I appreciate you coming here to the office. It's hard to believe it's been a year in office as the prosecutor. Looking forward to answering your questions.
Just first of all, to open up, just familiarize people with, can you discuss the staff you have in place to assist the citizens of Stoddard County, who you have in place here in your office?
I sure can. I'll start at the front office. Miss Heather Davis is our office manager. She's fantastic. Christy Patterson is our victim advocate. Vicki Soul does our child support enforcement. Justin Allen is our investigator. He's a commissioned deputy and he's our investigator in the office. Leanne Ryan is our first assistant prosecuting attorney. Mr. Rance Butler is our special assistant prosecuting attorney. That comprises our current staff. We've had some assistance by Kirsten Kersey Massey, who was a law student. She's served the office in the past year as a legal intern, and I believe we have built up the most robust prosecutor staff that's ever been seen in Stoddard County. So I'm very proud of it. They all do amazing work. It's fun to come to work with them every day and have people that are committed to justice and committed to working hard for the people of Stoddard County. And we have a really good team, and it makes this job, this hard, difficult job, much easier when you have people that like those that I named to work along with.
You mentioned your two assistant prosecutors that you have put in place in your office. How have Leanne Ryan and Rance Butler benefited your office and your service to the citizens of Stoddard County in your first term?
Having them both in this office, which for the first time gives the Stoddard County Prosecutor's Office 3 attorneys. It's very important to have 3 attorneys in this office. In fact, Stoddard County in the past has been the only full-time jurisdiction where there have been fewer than 3 prosecutors until I took office and worked hard to come up with some additional funding to get a 3rd prosecutor on board. As I say, Leanne Ryan is the first assistant prosecutor. I hired her immediately. I worked via the Law Enforcement Restitution Fund to come up with money to afford a 3rd prosecutor. That statute was enacted and in place at least partly to support the prosecutor's office. And graduating from the Law Enforcement Restitution Fund money, I applied with the state for a special grant which was awarded to us by the governor of Missouri for $100,000, and we're putting that to use for Mr. Butler to prosecute child sexual abuse cases. And I work with him on all those cases. Leanne is involved in some of those cases, but that is one of the highest priorities I have, is prosecuting child sex crimes in Stoddard County. So having that 3rd attorney that can help our office cover all court appearances in various jurisdictions when there are change of venue cases, and working through the hundreds of cases that we have in a more efficient way and giving that priority to those child sex cases. What we have in place is super important. Just to add a little more about how both of them have benefited my office, Leanne Ryan is responsible for primarily appearing in Division II court. We both do, but she generally handles Division II court. She and I both work on preliminary hearings, bond hearings. She also spearheads our child support enforcement division. She does many of the criminal case filings. As you know, we have many case filings that come in each week, and so she is on top of filing all of those, or a lot of those, most of those, and extending plea offers to keep things moving with communicating with various attorneys. Just the day-to-day operations, it's great to have Leanne's help. She's been a prosecutor a long time and she's been very helpful. Mr. Butler brings a lot of experience in these particularly difficult child sex cases. He brings that into the office, which is wonderful because we have such a strong team working together, and we have had some good results in those cases. Many of them are coming up for jury trial, and we're hitting all cylinders. So I hope that gives a little perspective about the attorney team here in the office.
I believe it does. Thank you for that explanation for those viewing. For those, I'll include myself in this, who do not know, can you discuss the process the prosecutor's office goes through when contacted by a law enforcement agency presented with evidence, the process you go through to determine if charges will be filed, what charges will be filed? How does the prosecutor's office go about making that determination?
I'm really glad you asked that question, and mainly because, as you know, many of our cases receive a lot of public attention when they're filed or not filed, maybe, and I want to address that by saying, the prosecuting attorney is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, so it is the responsibility I have and this office has to lead our law enforcement and to advise them in the course of an investigation, to be responsive to them when crimes occur or are needing to be investigated in a timely manner. That's why we take phone calls at 2, 3 a.m. on Saturday, Sunday, early in the wee hours of the morning, or at any time, because we want to be there for law enforcement to sign search warrants and get those back to them so they can execute search warrants to obtain evidence or someone they may be looking for. We give them legal advice about legal searches or traffic stops, whatever the case may be. When the major case squad's activated, we show up and we are there on the scene. I recall specifically a homicide case from last March when the major case squad was activated and my entire attorney staff and other staff was present for that homicide, and we were able to work through that together. So we give advice in the investigative phase of any case. We can issue investigative subpoenas to obtain information. As I mentioned, search warrants. We advise officers on essential facts they need to determine or evidence that they need to obtain so that we're able to file criminal charges in good faith and with the requisite legal standard or probable cause, so that we can take those cases into court and prove their elements to keep them advancing and progressing in the system, and ultimately hold the offenders accountable for their crimes. And so we work with law enforcement throughout a case. It doesn't just stop when we file the case. We show up for court. They act as witnesses. Their testimony based on their personal knowledge is evidence that can be considered in the court. And so we go through all the hearings. We do whatever's necessary, even jury trial if necessary. And we push it through, and we never stop working with our law enforcement. And I have to say, I'm very pleased with our law enforcement. We have outstanding law enforcement. Our Stoddard County Sheriff's Department, the Missouri Highway Patrol, the Dexter Police, the Burney Police, the Bloomfield Police, the Advance Police, the Puxico Police, our Missouri Conservation agents. We work with all law enforcement agencies, and I have had a great experience working with them so far. I promised that I would support them and work well with them. That has certainly been the case, and I've done it full time as promised. It's a real pleasure to work with law enforcement, and I'm proud of them. I will also note that I have held some of them accountable. I promised I would do that too, that I would not turn my head when they needed to be held accountable. In fact, I've prosecuted an elected county sheriff from New Madrid County driving way too fast in Stoddard County. I prosecuted him. I've prosecuted local police officers for crimes that may be pending, and I am a firm believer nobody is above the law, and I'll just say that, but I will say that we have some of the best law enforcement, and it's nice to work with them and have their support. They certainly have mine.
Mr. Smith, without, of course, we don't want to, without discussing details of any specific case, what types of cases have you seen so far, and how many in your first year in office? And if you wish to discuss it, how successful has the prosecution been in those cases?
Thank you. I think it's a misconception that we don't have crime in Stoddard County. While Stoddard County is a wonderful place to live, is a place I obviously grew up and live in, and love Stoddard County. I will say we have more crime than people think, and that's unfortunate. However, there's some good news. I think we're driving it backward with hard-nosed prosecution. Last year we filed 946 cases, criminal cases. That includes felonies. It doesn't include all tickets or misdemeanors, but 946. That's almost as many as New Madrid County. And you know what kind of crime is in New Madrid County and other surrounding counties. It's a competitive number. The year previous to me taking office, I think there was 1,200 or so cases filed. You had some laws enacted that legalized marijuana. We weren't able to file any cases like that. And there's some other interesting things to it, but the crime numbers seem to be going down. We're dealing with all kinds of crimes. We have everything from traffic offenses and DWIs, driving while intoxicated, to drug possession, to property crimes, stealing, burglary, violent offenses, robbery, domestic assault, regular assault, unfortunately, rapes, child sexual abuse, even homicides. And I'm proud of the fact that we have resolved some of the homicide cases that I inherited when I took office. We had a jury trial last March in State versus Melvin Anderson, in which we conducted a 3-day first-degree murder trial. The jury came back finding him guilty of second-degree murder and some other felonies. We put a lot of effort into that case. Your Honor, Judge Reeves passed away before any further proceedings, and we're still in those proceedings, and we're still working on that case. However, we've negotiated guilty pleas in voluntary manslaughter cases, other murder cases, and we've not delayed justice any longer for the victims of the deceased, the families, members of the deceased victims in those cases. So we prioritize the homicide cases. We're working on all kinds of cases and bringing swift justice. We've sent bank robbers to prison. We've held almost every kind of offender accountable that you can imagine. And so I do think it's a misconception we don't have all types of crime in Stoddard County. I can attest we do. Thankfully, we don't have very much gang violence, but the drug trafficking here is really shocking. But I've changed a lot of the way we deal with drug cases. People aren't just getting the benefit of probation and rehabilitation programs always. I have sent people to faith-based rehab. I have sent many people to treatment court programs, and I've sent many of them to prison. I want the message to be clear in Stoddard County that if you maybe more than possess drugs, if you deal drugs, you will face harsh consequences. We have to keep our county safe and clean from the scourge of meth and other hard drugs. We see cocaine, pills, everything you can imagine, and we are taking drug cases very seriously. We had a jury trial a few weeks or months ago in a meth possession case, and the jury was out less than an hour before they found the defendant guilty. We tried that case before a jury. His sentencing is yet to be determined, but we take our cases very seriously, Josh, and we're addressing all of them with that level of seriousness.
Very good. Thank you for that. You might have touched on this a little bit, but has the number of any particular type of case surprised you since taking office, or caused you concern that you're seeing the number of this particular type of case in the county?
The drug cases are alarming to me. I'm amazed how many drug cases we see. That being said, I'm also alarmed by the number of violent offenses that are committed in Stoddard County. I think drug use drives a lot of that. I think people that use methamphetamine are more likely to commit violent offenses. It makes them act outside their regular mental state. They commit more property offenses. Maybe they steal things that they then go and sell so that they can afford their drugs. So you really have to attack the drugs, I believe, to attack all the crime. In most of the homicide cases that I've been handling, one of the common threads is the use of methamphetamine. And so I think that's quite revealing. But we've had many good results in our cases. We've had hundreds of felony convictions. We're working through our cases very efficiently too. I will note that we have that drug case I mentioned we tried just a few weeks or months ago. It was filed last summer. summer of 2023. We had it progressed in the courts and adjudicated within the calendar year. That is a full-time prosecution. That's justice for all as promised. That's a full staff working very hard to bring justice for all. So we're setting out to do everything I talked about in the campaign year, and I wanted to prove that everything I mentioned was not just campaign promises. It were things that I would act upon, and I think my record is speaking for itself now.
And looking back at your first year, what are your feelings about what you and your staff have accomplished, and what are your goals looking ahead at year 2 and the rest of your first term?
Well, I think I've shared some of my feelings,
Yeah.
and I mean it humbly. I mean it with good intentions for the county is my priority. So my goals are to continue what we're doing, and my goal is to continue the staff that I have in place, and to ask the county commission when it comes time for them to do whatever they can to support my goals, because this office, while acts independently, is funded by the county commission, and I know our presiding commissioner has campaigned on his promise to support law enforcement, and I know that there's some things in limbo with the county commission. I would just remind them that the prosecuting attorney's office is the spear tip for law enforcement, and for us to continue the good things we are doing with protecting the public, protecting our communities, protecting our children and our families, and keeping everybody safe from drugs and violence. It takes what I am asking them for. I would ask the people to support my request of them so that we can have what we need to continue to fight and fight for justice for all, which we are delivering.
And Mr. Smith, do you have any final thoughts today?
My final thoughts are God bless Stoddard County and its people. I love them. I am excited to come to work every day and serve them. It is a real honor to be in this job, this position. I on top of all the legal things, I view this as an opportunity for public service, and I have done my best to issue press releases and notifications to keep to increase transparency with this office, to be responsive to people that reach out and want communication, whether that is victims or victims' families or concerned citizens. So I really do prioritize being a public servant. That's what I am. I'm an employee of the people. I work to serve them. Nobody's above the law, and I really just look forward to this job every day. The people that we've assembled here, we have fantastic legal system, our clerks, our judges, our law enforcement, and the defense bar as well. Very professional and respectful, and I enjoy working with all the defense attorneys. Not every case can go to a jury trial. That's important for the people to know, is when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of cases, it would be just impossible for each to be before a jury. So you do have to negotiate, you do have to work out what's fair in disposing of cases by plea agreement. And when I do that, I want the people to know I always consider all factors. I consider a defendant's criminal history, I consider their employment, I consider the personal life, and so on and so forth. And I try to make the best judgment call that I can for somebody. I am a compassionate prosecutor. While I talk tough and am tough in the courtroom, I am very compassionate, and I know that some people are deserving of second opportunities, maybe even third opportunities. It's all circumstance and fact driven, and I think having a prosecutor that's been a defense attorney, that is willing to be mindful of those things, is very important too, because as I believe it, and as the Bible says, love mercy, walk justly, and humbly with your God. So God bless you, Stoddard County, and thank you for your support.